hello. And 2 council members, Michael Glingona and Carol Platt. If you all could just say hello, raise your hands. Take care. Glad that you're in the room as well. So as I mentioned, this is the third in the series of our opening round of public meetings on this process, and I have to say, we've enjoyed some really good turnout. We weren't really quite certain how the public was going to respond to these meetings, and it's been really nice to see many people coming out for this. These meetings are an opportunity for the committee to hear public comment on the current district boundaries, as well as potential changes. And the board created this 9-member District Lines Committee after the voters changed the county charter in November of 2012. The change requires that only voters within a district can elect a supervisor who lives in that same district to represent them. And as you're probably aware, under the prior system, voters countywide elected all 5 supervisors. So we realized that this heightened interest in district-based elections, and the Board of Supervisors has tasked this committee with hearing public comment, studying the current and potential boundaries, and recommending possible adjustments. So, Doug, I guess you're elected to move the PowerPoint along. Just to reflect on tonight's agenda, I want to highlight for you the order that we've got in front of you, and you should have a copy on the green sheet. After these welcome and introductions, we actually don't have minutes from the previous meeting. That previous meeting happened just this past Saturday in Half Moon Bay. So you can be looking for those minutes to come before the committee for approval at the next meeting of this committee. We'll move right into oral communications and public comment. And in that process, we're open to hearing, the committee is open to hearing any comment on any items, whether they're on the agenda or not. We'll go right into, following that, a presentation on the redistricting process, and we found this is a really important orienting presentation to let you know what the process is all about. And then finally, we want to really importantly hear from all of you in this group discussion, looking for your input, comments, questions, and guidance early on in this process for what the factors are that you think are important as we look at the district lines and see what needs to be considered. We also have another presentation about an online, a web-based tool that can help ordinary folks go online and draw their own boundary lines and see what the results of that process is. So we'll have a little orientation to that mapping tool exercise. And we'll wrap up tonight with just a reminder of what the next steps in this process are and any closing comments from the committee. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the meeting over to the committee chair, Supervisor Tissier, and I'll let you call for public comment.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. We do have several speaker cards, and we are going to limit the comments to 2 minutes, but as you noted on here, there will be another opportunity after you have some presentations, which I think will be very valuable, and we usually get a lot of discussion after that. So let me start with Sharon Keenan, followed by Pamela Giovanni.
Sharon? I'll bring the microphone to you.
To talk about redistricting, but I'd like to know how you intend to find money for more supervisors and staff when the county is already short on money and cutting back on other services. It just looks like they're dividing it up for more government. That's all.
Thank you, Sharon. Pamela Giovanni, followed by Ray Buenaventura, Mayor Buenaventura.
Pamela?
You couldn't hear what I said? Oh, I was just calling names, but it's Pamela Giovanni. DiGiovanni. Sorry about that. D.I.
Yes, good evening, supervisors and committee members. Yes, I'm a community activist and wear many hats in Daly City, and I've come to embrace the diversity in our beautiful city, and dividing it is not the answer. Not just because of the monies. Monies is an issue across the board, even locally in our city. But we need to support also the opportunities that are already being denied currently under certain laws, that people of color and different backgrounds don't have these opportunities to run for elected offices. So I would like to have it open to people that are all backgrounds. We're all some of us mixed races or whatever, and we don't need to close it up, and we need to be cohesive That should be the idea. We need to be a cohesive community. And Daly City is a great community, and we've been running many programs out of Schutz Event Center, right up here up the street. And we want to continue doing that with the support of our city council, which has been extremely supportive. We're doing gun violence programs. We're having youth programs. We're going to be running health care out to the communities to make sure they have access. So this is just the beginning of cohesiveness, and we don't want to be split apart. We need to stay together, and that's very important in these days and times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Ray Buenaventura?
So good evening, everybody. I have a couple of things to maybe ask and also comment on. I was there at the last meeting on Saturday in Half Moon Bay, and one of the issues was brought up was why isn't this committee meeting being televised and fed to basically countywide? And I heard that that's something that is being considered, and that might be a possibility. And I heard something about costs being an issue. But I know from my own personal experience that you can stream this entire event for free by just going onto the internet website and doing it that way. I appreciate the fact that there's now a court reporter here that's taking the minutes, but I think this is just sort of part of the record, but it's not immediately broadcast to the people. And I think that needs to be done right away so that more people who are not here can see this live on television. The other comment that I had was with respect to when I went to the last meeting, a lot of people were asking me, why do we even have this committee in existence? What I understand is the voters voted to have district elections, but there was no vote to split districts or to have a consideration of the drawing of the district lines. My understanding of the population for all the districts now is that they are relatively the same, and there is no need to divide any district or to split any district because the numbers are satisfactory with respect to the way that each district is constituted. So I think a lot of people are asking for an explanation, feeling a bit nervous as to why we're even at this point when there is no law that says we have to even consider that. And my third inquiry is, a lot of the people that I've spoken to have a very strong belief that Daly City in particular not be divided whatsoever. So I'm trying to make that clear with respect to what I've heard from a lot of people and as well as my own personal opinion.
Thank you, Ray. I think we should go to public comment, and we can probably address some of these throughout the evening. Joe Otidy? Joe Otidy?
Dear Supervisorial District Lines Advisory Committee, on behalf of our community of interest in Northern Region of San Mateo County, we submit this public testimony to be incorporated into the drawing of our supervisorial district lines. As this committee draws district lines for the Board of Supervisor seats, we respectfully remind the committee that San Mateo County is going through this process because of a lawsuit in which Daly City residents and others challenged the county's previous at-large electoral systems, which diluted the votes of people of color communities. We urge this committee to ensure that our communities of interest are not divided and that our votes are not diluted as a result of this process. To assist you in the line drawing, we wanted to share the following details about our community and why we must be kept together. The northern part of San Mateo County is a major international port of entry for many immigrant families and has historically been a community of immigrant neighborhoods. For example, Daly City has the highest concentration of Filipino Americans, 33% of any municipality in the United States, and as a result of its flourishing Filipino culture, business, and social gatherings, Daly City is often referred to Little Manila or Manila City. Parts of Pacifica, South San Francisco, San Bruno are also very much a part of our diverse Asian, Latino, and African American community. Often members of our community will immigrate to Daly City first and South San Francisco, then transfer to other cities and regions not only in California but throughout the United States. Our communities speak multiple languages, many of which who are bilingual. However, there are those who have limited English-speaking ability skills and must be taken care of and need more resources. In the next 2 weeks, our community will present a working map to assist the community in its endeavor to protect its voice and its vote. As we stated earlier, and for the record, and as a recommendation, our community does not only incorporate Daly City as a whole, but extends further south into San Mateo County and beyond the current district lines, into South San Francisco, San Bruno, Pacifica, Colma, Brisbane, Broadmoor Village, and beyond. District 5 at least should incorporate these communities of interest. As we continue to reach out to community members throughout this process, we expect this working map to evolve, and we will provide updated map as needed. We are listing below some community markers, which will also be updated throughout the process.
Sometimes please feel free to submit that to us.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Carol Platt, council member, followed by Michael Gordona, council member.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm here to speak as a resident of the city of 49 years. I've lived here in Daly City. Out of those years, we've had several different district divisions with the Senate and the Assembly. The residents in this community want to stay as a whole, and I think that by dividing this up is not helping us. It's dividing the community up. I don't understand why this is going around that we need to divide Daly City. We're one community, and we need to stay one community. People get confused when we start putting dividing lines in some areas. I know in Seremoni, we've been divided I don't know how many times with the school board. I don't belong to the Jefferson Elementary School Board or the San Francisco or the Jefferson Union High School District. My kids went to South San Francisco School District. I know nothing at all. Those people don't keep us informed about what's going on. So we need to keep Daly City as a whole, and strongly thank you all for taking the time out to do this, but please keep us a whole. We don't want to be divided.
Thanks, Carol. Hard to follow my two colleagues, and I also want to say hello to my two colleagues, and my former colleague, Adrian, and my colleague, Sal Torres. My name is Mike Ingona. I'm a city council member here in Daly City. I've been a city council member for 20 years, and so I've seen a lot of board members come and go, and I was one of the only council members here to publicly support the redistricting effort for Metro P. So my interest is the same as my colleagues, Adrian and Warren and everybody on there, Bill, and people that I don't know. We want to stay whole, and I have participated in this kind of forum before. Sal and I both went to testify in a Senate subcommittee in San Francisco to ask that Daly City not be cut in half when the assembly redistricting happened, and it happened anyway. So I'm hoping that by being part of the public record that we can show our unity in this effort, and that is that we should keep our community interest whole, that Daly City not be cut, that we not be diluted in any way. So I thank you for your consideration, and I respectfully request that you take those words into consideration.
Thank you, Michael. If I may, I'd like to just make a couple quick comments. First off, we are being filmed, and we are going to be streaming this on our website at the county. So people will be able to see it from start to finish. After that meeting, we did talk about that and decided that it was an excellent idea. So just so you know that. The second thing is, and you'll see, I think the presentations are probably the best thing for you, because you'll realize we don't have to change the lines. We don't have to do anything. But we felt there needed to be a public process, because there were some people that wanted to look at the districts and should they stay the same, should they be different. And so we are entertaining a public process, and the best thing you can do is what you just did. Tell us what you want. And that's really important. And when you see the presentations, there'll be maps you can look at. You can leave them the same and say, please leave it the same. So I think the most critical part tonight is to see these presentations, and your feedback will be taken into consideration. And, you know, like anything, if we make a change here, it affects somebody somewhere else. So it's a very difficult process as well. So we will take into consideration each and every comment that's been made this evening and the other evening. So you will be heard for sure. So go ahead with the presentation.
Okay. I also want to assure those of you who didn't fill out a we'll get this figured out. I want to assure those of you who didn't fill out a speaker card
and didn't participate in that oral comment section, you will have another opportunity. So you didn't miss your chance to speak tonight. That was just the oral comments period. I also wanted to call your attention before we move on to a few things that are important to the committee process that you picked up hopefully at the table, and that is the comment form, which is a kind of a tan form here. This is an opportunity for you to write down your thoughts and ideas and significant in writing to the committee. Whether or not you want to speak tonight, perfectly fine to do all of that. There's also sort of a half sheet of yellow paper that indicates other ways for you to submit your input into this process. And for those of your neighbors and friends and colleagues who couldn't join us tonight or at any of the meetings, there is an email address, there's a mailing address for comments as well. So we're trying to make a lot of different avenues available for input into this process. So please make sure you take a copy of this. You can take some extra copies of all of the forms as well. And lastly, we'll probably refer back to this again, and Doug is going to come up in just a moment and tell you about the process. But we invite you also to use the map that was on the back table and literally draw the boundaries or a boundary that you are most interested in. And I think one of the things that the committee is interested in hearing about is not just where that line is, but why that line is important to you. So as we talk about a community of interest, what does that mean, and how do you define that? That's something that the committee is interested in hearing about. So with those preparatory remarks, I'm going to turn the mic over to Doug Johnson, who's going to give us a presentation on the redistricting process. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Committee members, if you have any comments or questions before we move.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thanks to all of you who came out tonight. I know it's Tuesday night, it's 6:30, everybody's tired, wants to go home, but thank you for being here. It's great to see everybody out here.
Sorry, I'm just letting the court reporter know who.
Oh, sorry, I'm Sal Torres,
There you go.
Daly City Council member. Quick question, and maybe this can be, a lot of the questions, especially starting with the mayor, was based on the idea of splitting of cities. And I think something the board has not been told, but I was informed that there was already a draft map drawn. And I'm wondering if there is a map, if there is or is not a draft map that's been drawn where we've even thought about redrawing lines. I wonder if that can be made available. If it's not, or has not been done, then I think that statement needs to be made and put into the record too.
I think I can clearly answer that for you. First off, the only map that exists is the current districts as they are today. We have not and will not start drawing any maps or having anything done until we get full input from all of you and every other district. And anyone and everyone can draw lines. They can say leave it alone. You don't even have to draw a map. You can just say leave it alone, and we know what that means. You can do it on the computer, you'll see in a few minutes, or you can even draw something up if you want. What's going to happen is they're going to calculate it and figure out what the population is, because it has to be somewhat even within each district. So nothing has been drawn other than the existing maps that are here. And so this is what we're giving out tonight if people want to look at it, but that doesn't break out the districts, that's just the whole county. So rest assured we have done nothing.
And that's a good segue to Doug's presentation. So Doug, why don't you introduce yourself and your role in this process.
See if I can do it without feedback. Good evening. My name is Douglas Johnson. I'm president of National Demographics Corporation. We are a company, California company that works with local jurisdictions throughout the state and actually throughout the entire western U.S. on local redistricting. So we work with cities, counties, school districts, water districts, everyone that draws lines, pretty much. We work with them to help draw the lines. So what I'm going to do this evening is kind of walk through a little introduction to redistricting, both in general and specific to the county. Hopefully provide a lot of information, answer questions you may have, and hopefully lead into your comments. And let me echo what was mentioned before. The whole goal of this first round is to get your input on what are your communities of interest. So the comments made so far are exactly what we're looking for. So thank you very much. First, why redistrict? As was mentioned before, we're here in part because the voters voted to change the election system. And the question is, the lines were drawn and the lines are actually balanced in 2011, but that was with an eye to the old election system. Are those lines fine as they are, or should there be changes? So the county board has voted to go out and get community input to answer that question. So that, at one level, is why we're here. At a bigger level, the idea of redistricting often has a bad reputation, but really, I'd like to say it's a noble purpose. It really is, at its foundation, ensuring equal representation, making sure that each district has an equal number of people. It often gets a bad reputation because of gerrymandering. And I do want to differentiate between redistricting is the balancing and ensuring of equal representation. Gerrymandering is the abuse of that process for some partisan or other purpose. So the goal of the committee in this process, and with all of you watching, is great to see, is to stick to redistricting and avoid gerrymandering. And so when does this happen? Well, it has to happen every 10 years, following each census. And counties and other jurisdictions have the option to do it more often if there's some need, like a change in election systems, or the most common reason is if somebody grows really fast. If a city's having 50% growth in 5 years or something like that, they will revisit in the middle of the decade. But it has to happen every 10 years, so at a minimum, we'll be back in 2021 revisiting these lines after the 2020 census. As mentioned before, there was the vote and a change in election system. I think this just covered. Oh yeah, and then the county. So the county voted as a formal process to form this committee, come out with this first round of 5 meetings, to kind of with a blank slate with no draft plans. The only thing I might add is that if there is talk of draft plans, it might be that a community group might be drafting something, but there's nothing being drawn by either this committee or by me as their technical consultant. It may surprise some people, given what you read and hear about redistricting, but there actually are rules for redistricting. First of all are federal laws. The big one, of course, is the U.S. Constitution, which has been interpreted by the courts to mean that there has to be equal numbers of people in each district. Note that this is people. It's not registered voters. It's not people of voting age. It's not eligible voters. It is people. So it counts everyone, regardless of age, citizenship, anything like that. It's all about having an equal number of people so that each group of people has the same representation at the county board. The other law, the other federal law, is the Federal Voting Rights Act. Note that there's been a lot of history here with the California Voting Rights Act. The California law only really governs whether you use district elections or not. What really governs where the lines are drawn is the Federal Voting Rights Act. And at its root, it says that every group, regardless of race, ethnicity, or language, should have the equal power to elect their candidates of choice. Part of that is that we also have to avoid racial gerrymandering. So the idea isn't to throw a line up and just grab every person of whatever ethnic background and throw them all into one district. Even though we do look a lot at numbers, and we'll see some numbers in a minute, this is still about communities and neighborhoods. So even if someone thinks that one of the districts divides, say, Asian Americans to randomly pick a group and wants them put together, we still need to look at which neighborhoods to put together, not just throw a map up, as you'll see we can do, showing where Asian Americans, in that case, live and draw a line around them. At its heart, this is about communities and neighborhoods. There also is mention of redistricting in California law. So the California Code says that when redrawing lines, you may take into consideration topography, geography, compactness, and communities of interest. It's not a requirement for any of those, but it's just the state giving its green light to considering those and saying those are appropriate considerations. State law also says that redistricting will not impact the term of any current supervisor. So your current board, no one will lose their seat midterm or anything like that. This is all about future elections, not the supervisors today. But when we think of redistricting, what we most often think of for rules or goals are what the courts have referred to as the traditional criteria. The most commonly mentioned one is, of course, communities of interest, as you all have appropriately mentioned it this evening. There are lots of academics desperately trying to achieve great fame in redistricting circles, as small as those circles may be, for defining communities of interest, coming up with some formula of data. But really, in practical terms, the best definition of community of interest remains whatever the people who live in an area say it is. It may be that your neighborhood is defined by a school, and everyone that lives around that school considers themselves a community of interest. It may be that your neighborhood is defined by a park. It may just be that it's, between the hill and the road or something like that. Whatever you define as your neighborhood is the community of interest that the committee and I want to hear about. And it could be, as some of you have said tonight, that the community of interest is the whole city, especially when the cities are relatively small compared to the size of an entire district. One thing to keep in mind, and this has come up at the earlier forums, is that communities of interest are building blocks. We're not looking to say one whole community of interest is the size of a district, so draw your district based on that one community of interest. What we're looking for are building blocks that we can put together into districts. So it may be a set of cities, or it may be a couple of cities and neighborhoods from larger cities. Whatever you define as your community of interest, that makes sense. The next traditional criteria is following visible, both natural and man-made features. This is following rivers, following freeways, following the hills down the middle of the county. The real goal of this criteria is to make districts easier for voters to understand, and thus easier for voters to get involved in elections. Part of what you can think of is the idea is when someone wants to get involved in this case, a supervisorial election, and wants to recruit their neighbors to go knock on doors for some candidate, it's a lot easier to say, hey, let's go knock on all the doors between the freeway and the river than it is to say that between Main Street for 2 blocks and then G Street for 2 blocks and then T Street for 2 blocks. So we do try to follow major features so that people can get involved and understand the district easily. For the same reason of making districts easy to understand, we want to keep the districts as compact as we can and contiguous, obviously. You don't want pieces of districts spread out. Now, these are criteria and they are goals to achieve, but it's impossible to do them all perfectly. Obviously, the population requirements, since that is a law and a must-do, often will lead to not following a major feature because you've got to balance populations. Or following, if you define a community of interest as a city. Cities sometimes have unusual shapes, so you may not have the most compact district because you're trying to keep a city together. Balancing these criteria is really what this process is all about. So the other traditional criteria that get a little less attention are continuity in office. This is the idea, and the courts have said this is an acceptable consideration, just like the other traditional criteria, that re-election decisions should be made by the voters, not by redistricting. So it's an acceptable consideration to try to avoid pairing 2 supervisors into 1 district, because then you're telling the voters you can only have one of these 2, as opposed to letting the voters decide whether or not to re-elect somebody. Population growth is also a consideration, although not usually in jurisdictions like San Mateo. It's usually a consideration in faster growing areas. One note, one of the committee members noticed there is a typo in your presentation, in your handout. It says much less certain in 2011 than in 2011. Honestly, it meant to say much less certain in 2011 than in 2001. So this is not typically a consideration in San Mateo County given the growth rates here, but it is something the courts have said can be considered. And then the last of the traditional redistricting criteria is preserve the core of existing districts. Really what this boils down to is that the voters and the people in a given district have some degree of familiarity with the existing districts. They may be very involved and really know the borders specifically, or may just have a general idea. But if one of the other criteria isn't driving a change, then don't make a change. If a district is slightly off from perfect population balance, the courts have said it's okay to leave it as long as it's close, so that you don't disrupt the districts and the organizations and the communities that are in a given district. So I mentioned we look at a lot of numbers in this process, and you don't have to. I do want to emphasize that. These are numbers that we provide so they're useful to you. Obviously, as a consultant, I look at this a lot, but you can look at it or ignore it as you choose when you're submitting plans. Essentially, if you don't want to run the numbers, we'll run them for you when you send your plan in. So these are the existing lines. Countywide, no surprise, you have a very diverse county here. In 2010, according to the census, we were at just over 718,000 people. If you look at the bottom here, we've done an update using California Department of Finance and Census Bureau estimates. We've grown a little bit up to just over 736,000 people. The key number is the number right below that. Our target is 736 divided by 5. Because we're still keeping 5 districts. There's no change in the number of supervisors. But we are looking to possibly at moving where the lines are. So the target is 147,214. Now in your county, your total population right now is about 25% Hispanic. And you see here in San Mateo, as just about everywhere in California and throughout the Southwest, the Hispanic population tends to be younger and less likely to be citizens than the general population. So that number is 25% in total population, goes down to 22.8% in voting age population, which is also from the 2010 census. Non-Hispanic whites, 42% of total population, go up to 45% of the voting age. And non-Hispanic Asian Americans, 26% of total population, stay almost exactly there at 26.4 of the voting age population. Now those two numbers are from the 2010 census, the total population and the voting age population numbers. You may recall that the census doesn't ask, are you a citizen? So when the courts say we want to look at citizens of voting age as a definition of who are your eligible voters, we have to get that data. And thankfully, that also comes from the Census Bureau. It doesn't come from the 2010 census. It comes from a separate survey that the Bureau does called the American Community Survey. Some of you may have gotten about a 40-page packet that the Census Bureau sends out asking all kinds of questions, everything from how far do you drive to work, do you have indoor plumbing, and also it asks how old are you, what ethnicity or race are you, and are you a citizen? So we do get those numbers from the Census Bureau, just not from the 2010 census. And here in the county, you can see there are 451,000 citizens of voting age, about 16% Hispanic, about 53% non-Hispanic white, and about 24% non-Hispanic Asian, 7% other. Now the last data set that we use is actually from the state of California. The state takes a Census Bureau list of Spanish surnames, or surnames that are usually considered Hispanic or Spanish. And they also take a list of Asian American surnames, and they run it against the voter file. They get the voter files from all the counties and run those numbers. Now, the data hasn't been run for San Mateo County yet from 2012, so we went ahead and ran it ourselves. And as of May of 2013, we're at about 15.5% of registered voters have Spanish surnames, about 9% of registered voters have Asian surnames. The key thing here is when we're looking at the Voting Rights Act, we want to be able to estimate the ability to elect of the people casting ballots. And to do that, we'd like to know the ethnicity of the people casting ballots. So ideally, the ethnicity of those voters is what we want, and the Spanish and the surname estimates of turnout are what we really want. The problem is that as we get closer to that number, the data gets less and less reliable. So this is why we use so much data. The census data, the 2010 census, really is the best data available. For all the problems of the census, it is a phenomenally accurate data set compared to anything else out there. The American Community Survey data for citizen voting age, it's a survey, so it comes with some error factor in there. It's not as good as the 2010 census, but it's a survey of 1 million households a year nationally. It's a really big survey. So it's fairly reliable, and the courts have consistently looked at that. And the surname data also has issues. Obviously, marriage and other reasons, surnames change and aren't accurate. But it's the best available data we have at that point. So we look at all this data to try to get a full picture. We can also map this data. You can see Latino population by census tract in the county. No surprise. Densest down in East Palo Alto and the southern part of the county. Some up in South San Francisco and the northern part of the county. Similarly with Asian Americans, as you were just discussing, very diverse up here in the northern part of the county. And then a second kind of concentration around Foster City. But this is the kind of data we can look at. And I was mentioning before, we can't just take our computer pen and draw right around those lines, because race can be a consideration, but it can't be the predominant consideration. What we're really looking at is neighborhoods and communities. The gentleman, actually, let me highlight one thing. The gentleman who spoke earlier, you may don't remember your name. Nice. Oh, yeah, what he was talking about what ties the neighborhoods together. You know, a history of being a gateway for recent immigrants, that kind of stuff, that kind of economic and social data is exactly what we want to look at, so that race is not the predominant factor, but obviously there are some common themes that we want that tie the community of interest together. Then the data that I just walked through for the county, here it is district by district. The same data groups, the 2013 population, percentages of total population, voting age population, citizen voting age, and then those surname categories that I mentioned. This spreadsheet is something you'll be seeing a lot of. For each of the plans that are developed, whether by us as the consultants or sent in from the public, one of these spreadsheets will be created and shared, made public, obviously, and shared with the committee. Let me go through, so the process. There was a question earlier about draft plans. We're not starting any draft plans yet because the goal of this first round is to hear from you with a blank slate. What is your community of interest? How is it? How do you feel about how it's treated? And so this is the first round of public meetings between now and July 11th. The goal is really to just get first impressions. At that July 11th, the committee will be giving direction on what it wants to see in draft plans, what it's heard from the community, and that will lead to the creation of draft plans. In addition to hopefully at least some, and hopefully lots of draft plans that we'll get from the community. Nothing says the committee has to adopt a plan drawn by its consultant or anything like that. I actually love it best when the community gets engaged in a community plan that's adopted. Those plans will be released. Time will be allowed for everyone to look at them, analyze them, and we'll start a second round of public meetings. The dates haven't been set yet, but they'll be in August and September. And through those meetings, the plans will evolve. The committee will hear from the public. What do you think about the plans? The committee will give more direction, and there may be new drafts. Hopefully there'll be new drafts coming from the public, and the committee may want to see revisions to drawn by us as well. The goal is to finish September or very early October, and the committee make a recommendation to the board, and then the board will be acting in October and November. So it seems a long ways away, but this will go very quickly. As I mentioned, we're looking at round one. We're in meeting 3. We've got 2 more next Tuesday in East Palo Alto, and then the first round will wrap up July 11th in Millbrae. So nothing says you can't come to the meetings in the other districts. We actually encourage people, as the mayor did the other day, to come to as many meetings, especially if you have new thoughts, new ideas you want to share, and new feedback. Let me highlight briefly that this whole round is all about public input, and public input is vital. As I said, communities of interest are best defined by the people who live in them. So what is your community of interest? How is it treated in the current lines? Do you like where the current lines are? Should we keep them where they are? Would you like to see a change in the current lines? And I can actually zoom in live. If you want to tell us something about where the line is in your neighborhood, let me know. I can bring the map up and we can zoom in down to your street if you want. It's a little scary about how much detail we have nowadays. Different ways, as was mentioned earlier. You can speak tonight or at a follow-up meeting. You can send an email, make a phone call. Any of the traditional input ways are all available here. Plus, as you'll see in a follow-up presentation, we have a very cool online tool for those of you that are tech savvy and want to get in there and really draw the lines. What I love about this is it's not the traditional issue where the public input is really limited to I like X, I don't like Y. If you don't like Y, pick up your pen and fix it. So in this case, pick up your mouse and fix it, because you can use the online system to draw a new plan or to draw just your neighborhood or anything like that. I do want to emphasize the online tool is a very cool tool for those that want to get into it and that are comfortable on the computer. It's powerful software, so it's not something you just learn instantly. So feel free to send in your input any way you want. Draw on these paper maps, which are great. Thank you for doing those. Draw on paper maps. I would say draw on a napkin. Whatever you want to send in will be treated equally because however we receive it, we will do a map. We'll have the format. We'll run the demographic spreadsheet for you. We'll make sure, we'll confirm back with you that you got it right when we put it in the computer, and then it will go into the public record. So it's not like you just send in a napkin that can't be considered because it's too simple. We will put it in the format for committee consideration and adoption, and it will get all the same treatment that anything drawn online will too. So here is the contact information. We have the website. We have email, mail, the online mapping tool that you'll see in a second. Yeah, but now we're at the point where we want to hear from you on what are your communities of interest. We've heard some of it. If others want to share, we'd love to do that. And like I said, if you want me to pull up a map, I'm happy to do so.
All right, so I think we're going to actually ask Marshall, can you come up and run the microphone around? And I'm going to use the wired mic so that we can make sure everybody can be heard. Is this working? Yes. Okay. So this is the open forum part. To ask questions of Doug, if any of that presentation was a little bit confusing to you or want some clarification, that's fine. Or these questions that we put before you, how would you define the community of interest that was of concern to you? And also, if you are happy with the way lines are drawn currently, and you can express that as well. The committee would like to hear both. We like it the way it is, or we would suggest looking at some other change. And if you can be specific about a geographic location, that is always helpful as well. But it's a very open process at this point. So any reactions and thoughts and ideas at this point are absolutely welcome. So let me just ask you, to raise your hand if you'd like to speak so that we can have a fairly orderly process. And we have a big crowd tonight. We have about 45 minutes set aside for this. So I'd like you to keep your comments within 2 minutes if possible. I'm not going to be terribly strict, but I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak that wants to. So starting with which gentleman here? And if you want the name for the record, we have
it depends on what you want. Do you want anything else?
Yes, that would be nice.
They should say their name first.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Jones. I live in Daly City.
Great.
Would you please show us on the wall a large blow-up of the current outline of this district?
This district. Okay. Do you have that? Any bigger than this? Keep going. Keep zooming. How's that work? Okay.
Maybe you can mention what it incorporates, like Broadmoor, Colma, Brisbane,
Yeah, as you can see, it incorporates the Broadmoor area, Colma, Brisbane, Daly City. I don't know exactly.
yeah,
City lines.
West of Alpena.
Yeah, west of Alpena.
That's what it sounds like.
Right. Okay. Any comments about this? Do you like the line where it is, or is there a community of interest that you're concerned about? Or you just want to see the
I
map?
just wanted to see it.
Great. All right. So we got the map up there. Okay. This gentleman here, and then back to the gentleman behind.
Daly City.
Okay.
I just want to know, is Daly City the only one that's being divided? Or is there other cities being divided too?
I'm not sure where people got the idea that we wanted to divide Daly City. What we're doing is we're going to each supervisorial district to get input from the community to see if they'd like to change something from what currently exists. And if you do, we're asking you to either draw it or say what you'd like to see. If you don't want anything to happen to the district, you need to say that as well. So we may not do anything on any district, but there's also, when we were at the last meeting, there were some people from San Carlos and other areas that didn't like to necessarily be part of the coast side. So they're asking us to perhaps take a look at that. Those were some of their comments. So every district has different comments. The thing we all have to remember, though, if we change something in one district, it could potentially affect other districts. So that's why it's important, like if we do what they asked us and we draw that map, those individuals that go out of the coast side district, the coast side's going to have to take more because you need more population. So we're this idea of dividing up Daly City. We haven't talked about doing anything, and that's why we're here tonight. And that's really important.
All right. Marshall, this gentleman had his hand up. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Glenn Sylvester. I'm a resident of Daly City for almost 25 years now. And until this came up, and as a result of the vote, believe me, within the past couple of months, it's been a definite learning experience. I'm proud to be a part of Daly City, and as the gentleman said earlier, I think it was Joe, I have to concur with him because I'm one of those blue-collar workers of Daly City, and I'm proud to be. And Daly City is unique. Unique in the sense of the rapid transit that it has, the different places that we visit, the churches, the schools. And it's a great city. And due to the socio-economic situation, I mean, I would love to be in Burlingame. I would love to be in Menlo Park. I love all of you. But this is just the way Daly City is. Mr. Johnson, I'd like to thank you. And I just was looking at your slide, and I saw a difference in population in 2010. It started out at 718,451 to 2013 of 736,068. But what I didn't get is, where did those people go? Did they go to Daly City? Did they go to Palo Alto? And hopefully things like that would be considered. I saw your map earlier, and the yellow square that represents the number 5, it looks like the letter V. I am hoping, supervisors and committee members, that we want to try to keep everything continuous, nice order, and it had a figure V there, so if we had to take away from one part, I'm wondering if that V would get bigger. And basically, a straight line across is the best way to go. Please consider the cohesiveness and the compactness, and especially in Daly City, we have community of interest of different and varying communities. And believe me, Daly City is a good place. And hopefully this will solve the issue, because when I put in my zip code and I make an order online, I give them my zip code 94014. I say it's Daly City, they get back to me and say, is that Coma? Because it's listed as Coma. But hopefully that would be corrected. And I found your new number of 147,2014. That's a good number to know, because we as a community here in Daly City, we'll try our best to work with the community so that we can satisfy everything here and keep everyone happy. We all want to get along together. Thank you so much for giving me the moment.
Thank you. Okay. Any other people wishing to speak? Just a quick raise of a hand, and we'll bring the microphone over to you. Mayor?
So, can I work off the assumption then, based on what the comments that were made, that the presumption is that you're not going, by example, that you're not going to break up Daly City or move the lines, unless and until you get public comment that will tell you to do that. Now, then my follow-up question is, what if you get a vocal minority who wants to break up something like Daly City? How much of the population is weighty enough for you folks to say, okay, we're going to break up Daly City, or whatever? That's my question. So, if I appreciate this presentation, but what if it falls flat and there is not the community input to keep Daly City whole, for example, and a vocal minority wants to break it up? I want to know what the deliberation process is going to be, and how are you going to come to that conclusion?
Do you want to describe sort of the deliberation process by the committee?
Well, first off, as we mentioned, we don't have anything yet, but as we start getting maps from all over the county, including any and all of you from Daly City, however you want to do it, it'll come back to the committee, and the committee itself will talk about things like communities of interest, contiguous lines. We have to look at population. So if somebody wants to carve out a piece of Daly City, likely we wouldn't do a donut hole, something like that. But the committee would have to talk about all these different issues. So until we have things in front of us to really talk about, but for instance, if someone wanted to say, well, we don't like that jog down there in the South San Francisco, we're going to put a straight line across. We just lost a huge amount of population. We have to make it up somewhere else. So where else do we make it up? So until we see some maps, we don't have anything to deliberate on. But I think when you heard what some guidelines we have to follow, and others are good to follow because it makes sense. And just because it's a vocal minority, I think this committee really needs to know how it truly affects the entire community. So until we deliberate, I can't answer specifically what we're going to do, but I would say if there's enough input from people in our communities, we're going to listen very carefully. So that's as good as I can say at this stage of the game.
Okay.
Sal.
Ray, can everybody hear me? So I wonder if you could flip to number 12. I'm going to steal your thunder here, Mr. Johnson. If you look at number 12, look at the bottom left, and it says the per district target population is 147,000, right? Essentially what that means is we want every pocket, every district of the 5 to have about that many in it, right? Now I want you to flip to number 15. Okay, look at the top row. In the 2013 population, look at, for example, since we're in District 5, I'll only speak to District 5. District 5 has 144,644, this is voters, or population, if you will, okay? Remember the target population was 147. The second line says deviation from ideal. That is how many less people we have from the target population. So we're only about 1.75% off. So if there was a split of Daly City, we'd actually be creating a bigger gap in the deviation, which dovetails on what Ms. Tessier is saying, is that we have to make it up. So it behooves us as a district, as a redistricting committee board to look across these lines and realize the only one that's really far from the deviation is district number 2. And you can see they're about 3,000 people off. So ours is so close, we'd actually almost be obliged to add to District 5 in order to reach the ideal target. So, and in answer to the mayor's question, if there's a minority population that says split Daly City in 2, then by definition you'd be reducing that number even further, which would go away from the intended goal that we've talked about here today, which is to make it about 147,000. So from a statistical, demographical standpoint, it makes sense pragmatically and logistically and ethically to keep it together. I can tell you, I can assure you, all you Daly City residents, that I will vehemently oppose any breakup of Daly City. And that's because I understand the needs of the city, as does Ms. Tessier, having been a former mayor and council member. So there is some unity in terms of thinking of what makes practical sense. But I think the numbers speak for themselves, and you can see we're not that far, which is why one of the alternatives, and we talked about this on Saturday, one of the alternatives is to do nothing, to just leave the district boundaries as is, because as you can see, we're not that far from the target anyway.
And maybe we can get a comment back. What I recall from this chart, and this is what we did this from the census, I was on that committee, and I believe the variation was anywhere from 0 to 5% is sort of the deviation you could sort of live within for these numbers. The ideal would be 147, but there's a small percentage that could go either way and still keep us within a satisfactory number for our districts.
Can I? Sure. Barbara Arietta, Pacifica. On the comment that you just made, Carol, under rules, federal law, it says different for 2011. All deviations must be explained. Being within plus or minus 5% is no longer enough. This is why NDC recommends all 2011 clients formally adopt criteria. Just a matter of clarification.
Okay. Yeah, we have, yes, this gentleman in the back. Speak right here. Speak right here. Good.
There's been a lot of talk about the population issue, and that's important, right? There's another issue that needs to be brought into the too, which is that federal law requires that if a majority minority district can be created, it must be. And that is going to override many other considerations. And we would be committed to go a larger deviation if necessary to create a majority minority district. Another consideration similarly would be subordinate because that's a requirement of federal law. So while it's important for us to keep a focus on equal populous districts, frankly, 2% isn't bothering anybody. Over 5% is getting a little dangerous area, but if again it was needed to be done that way in order to preserve or create a majority minority district, as in which the minority group constitutes more than 50% of a particular district, that would count as a
Other comments about this process, about anything that you like about the current lines or would like to see changed?
Hello, my name is Roseanne Chavez. I don't know redistricting too in depth, so please correct me if I make any assumptions. I do understand the reasons for splitting up the districts according to the community of interest you presented. Personally, I think goals in you should stay in just one district. If the goal is to encourage engagement and representation, I think it would be more efficient and effective to have our representations in just one district. From personal experience, I think it's been more empowering and effective for to engage people around cities, not like the community of interest that are in cities.
Okay. So another comment about cities as a definition of a community of interest. Did you have your hand up here? Any other questions, comments? Back in the back row, yeah, just 1 second. Yeah, the microphone's coming to you, and we'd appreciate it if you use it, please.
I have lived in Daly City I've lived in Daly City for 33 years.
Tell us your name.
My name is Cassandra Malik, and I've lived in Daly City for 33 years. All my kids are grown up here. I want to keep the city to be intact as one. Keep it the way it is. I love it the way it is. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
I just wanted to make a suggestion.
Right here.
If the voice isn't loud enough, could you raise the mic's volume?
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it from screeching at us. All right. So, and if you're having trouble hearing, just let me know. Okay. Other comments, questions? We can keep moving. We have one other presentation to show you as well. Let's go ahead and do that. Is Chris here? Yeah. There you are. Okay, so the next presentation is about this online mapping tool called the Advancement Project mapping tool. And as Chris will explain to you, this is a way that you can go online and not only draw lines, but see in real time how the demographics of that district change. So what is the population, if you've drawn a new line, what is the population of that district that you just created? So I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but that's what you're looking for in this presentation. And Chris, go ahead and explain it for us.
Cool, thanks. So, I need a mic. Oh, sorry.
I guess you did.
Thanks. So right off the bat, we're a website, so that's it. This website is not going to change your life. It's not going to make everything better, but what it's going to do is going to connect you with the data that the commission is using to make decisions. So really what you want to do is continue to make comments exactly like you're making, and if, and only if, you want to back some of these comments up with data that these folks are going to be considering, then I'd say use this website, and it can be very helpful. But this is I definitely don't want to supplant the good comments and the good thinking you guys are doing already, and that's really what you should keep doing. So a little bit about me. I'm from the Advancement Project. We're a civil rights organization. I personally live in Oakland, but we have offices in Sacramento, DC, and Los Angeles. We've worked with the statewide redistricting.
Chris, you're going to need to stand on the side. So that
sorry. Is everyone looking right through me?
Yeah, right.
Sorry about that. So we've worked with the State Redistricting Commission and others around redistricting really to get more people engaged, to get more community voices involved in drawing maps and actually backing up their maps with the data that other paid consultants have only been able to do in the past. So the software that this is built on is the Redraw California software. And basically, it will connect with Doug's software, but Doug's software costs somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So if you have $5,000 and $10,000 in your pocket, spend it and buy Doug's software. But if you don't have $10K, waiting for you at home or to buy redistricting software, then I'd suggest using this site and basically being able to draw maps that will connect directly with Doug's software. So with that in mind, I'll show you smcdistrictlines.org, and there are flyers and handouts with more about the site on the table over there. So again, it's smcdistrictlines.org, and you want to come to this site if you want to draw maps with data. I will repeat again, the maps you have here, we can hand draw. The comments you can make to the commission, they are as good and better. But if you want to back these up with data, that's when you're going to come to this site. So what you can do on the site is view district maps that other people's are making. So you're going to, as people are adding, and I didn't look since our last meeting actually, there were no maps drawn up as of Saturday, but there could be maps today. So if you want to see what other maps community members are drawing, you can go on our site and see them posted. When the commission starts releasing drafts, they're also going to be posted on our website, so you can look at and see basically, is Daly City kept whole in the draft or is it not? And if you see a map that does not keep it whole, you can basically make a counter argument on our site and have data to back it up. So this would be an example of a map someone could create. These are the existing district boundaries, and you can, as other people continue to make maps, you can see what other people are thinking, what plans and communities of interest they're drawing. So what you can do on our website is also find your district lines, kind of like what we saw Doug doing earlier by looking at your district online. And basically when you get to the site, you're going to see a map and you're going to see all the data that Doug has been talking about, the types of data that the commission is going to be considering along with plans and communities of interest. And you can zoom in and out just like Google Maps or any mapping website to pan in and interact with the areas, see city lines, zip code boundaries, that kind of thing. Then you can click to add the district boundaries, and then you can move your mouse to hover over different districts and see what the population is on the district, what the population is of a city, and that kind of thing. You can pan and zoom the map, or just type in an address and have it zoom directly to an address you want to see. So it could be your home address, your work address, and you can figure out what district am I in from that address. So I've zoomed in to a address in San Mateo. And when you're there, it's going to, you're going to see streets, features like rivers, railroads, more things that'll help you understand where you are. And then you can also put city boundaries, census tract boundaries, zip code boundaries, and other boundaries right on top of this map. So you can begin to see, are these district lines cutting my city or keeping them whole? How are they related to my zip code or other areas that are important to you? So in this example, I'm going to show you, before I show you an example of how to draw your own lines, one other thing you can do is map the data that Doug was showing maps of and interact with them. So by clicking this map thematic data, you can add, for instance, the Latino population. And what my coworker says, you can see kind of an X-ray of the community. You can begin to see by socioeconomic status or by race, ethnicity, or other indicators where folks live in San Mateo. So this is a map of Latinos in the county, but zoomed in here. And the darker areas have higher concentrations of Hispanics or Latinos than the lighter areas. So you can see pockets, and if that's an important indicator to you, you can begin mapping and overlaying even other indicators as well. So the example I'm going to show you now is how to draw your own communities of interest, districts or plans on the site. So if you can see here, this district boundary splits the city of Belmont. So say you live in the city of Belmont and you want to keep your city whole, and you want to basically draw a counter district or a counter plan to what you're seeing here. What you can do is click on the green go to adjust this district. This happens to be District 2. And what you're going to see are the census blocks, which are the basis of any district. They're going to light up in red. And it's kind of an odd shape and it jets into the water. So technically there are census blocks in the water. So they're going to kind of come with you, and you're going to see when you move these census blocks or get rid of and add them, the population isn't going to change because nobody's really living in the water. At least we hope people are living kind of out in the middle of the bay, I guess. But if you add or change any of the blocks down here to make the city whole, you're going to see the population change and the other data change. So you can follow directly as you're drawing maps and plans. How is that affecting the data, the equal population, for instance, that the commission is looking at? So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape to match the city boundary of Belmont. And I took my mouse and I went click, 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 right along the city boundary. And in making this boundary, I'm going to add all these blocks to this district plan to fill out the city. So here I've filled out the city, my population data has updated, and I can basically continue to add more districts or keep this district and just submit this one, because for instance, your district may be the only one you care about. If you want to care about the whole county and continue to draw other districts, you can do so and make a full plan to submit to these folks. So the last thing I'll mention is just how to save what you've done. The key thing is to click the Save Blue Boundaries link. And if you don't have, basically to save something, you're going to have to create a free account where all you need is a name, a password you create, and just kind of like any email. And once you've done that, this is actually what the account page looks like. You just have to put your name, create a password, and if you'd like to say what city you're in, you can, but you can just say you're in California. And then the most important thing is to type your description. So I've filled in that example the city of Belmont, but if I really want this to have weight, I want to say why I filled in the city of Belmont. Just like the testimony that we've heard today, you've said why keeping the city whole is important to you. That's what you want to do, and you want to type that in here so the comments are connected with the maps, and the commission can really do some good considerations on them. So that is it. This is just an example of what it's going to look like. You're going to be able to send it directly to the commission, so they're going to read it and understand it, just like any other testimony. And that's it. I'll thank you very much. And any questions, I can take them now or afterward. The one thing I would say that we've gotten in previous to anticipate a question from previous hearings is that it's currently only in English, so what we're trying to do is connect with you guys to have trainings for people in other languages, have trainings for people who may not be able to come to these meetings. So please come talk to me afterwards, or pick up a flyer and contact me that way. And let's set up a training where together we're getting community members involved in using this software, and really in any means possible to get people connected to this process. So hopefully that helps.
All right. Mayor Bonaventura has a question or comment.
At the last meeting, I asked for you to include on that program a button that you can click to just say, keep the district lines as is. Because to me, this is like a voting system. And I don't think it's as intuitive if the position of a person is to keep them as is, to have to redraw their whole district just to submit that sort of vote. Has there been any discussion or progress to have that button they can just click to say, keep the district as is?
So that's a good question. So the comment came on Saturday, and it is now Tuesday. And my apologies, between Saturday and Tuesday, I have not updated the website. But we do have plans to make something that achieves that. And I can't say it's going to be a nice button exactly as how we described it, but we're basically trying to figure out on our end what's the cleanest way to get people that understanding, so that it's not a hidden button. So they're seeing that up front and they're understanding. Good question.
Okay. Wait for the microphone and identify who you are, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Wilson Shue. I've been a resident of Daly City for the past 38 years. So maybe not as long as some of the, as Carol. But I have gone to school here and grew up in Daly City. Anyways, my question to you is, we are concerned about the Daly City lines, but what is also occurring is that we're examining all lines across the county, so there could be a domino effect. That's going to occur. So if one county has too many people, we're going to add them, and then if we add them there, then we're going to take away from it. So my question is, are you guys going to have minutes put on the website where we get understanding of what are the interests of some of the other cities, to get a better idea of what the domino effects are going to be, and whether or not, even though we want to keep alliance, if the committee is thinking about moving them because they have to, because of other cities, then we could have a response. And I'm strong to accommodate.
I think that's a committee question, right? How this is going to be decided.
Well, first off, we're going to post all the information that we have, and we're also going to be streaming this, so you'll be able to actually look at the different meetings that have taken place, starting from tonight, and we'll make sure we get the minutes on the website as well, because we do want to be transparent, and we want you to see what other people have to say, because I mentioned that earlier. If the southern end, they want to move things around, it's going to have a domino effect, and that at the end of the day, that's something this committee has to say, is that really going to be effective? Because now you've just sort of upset the entire apple cart. But there may be some between two districts that work very well, and people are comfortable with it. But that's why we really want people out here, because we want people to see that if X happens, then it's going to affect Y. You're absolutely right. But that will all be on our website, and it will also be streamed.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments, questions about the mapping tool or anything else that you've heard tonight? So.
My name is Attila Lambino. I've been a resident of Daly City from 1995 to 2003, and since 2003 I've moved to South San Francisco. So my question is somewhat related to one of Mayor Buenaventura's questions earlier. And regarding the software and sort of the first round of public meetings, the public meetings seem to be from June 6th to July 11th. And so with this tool being online, and I'm assuming accessible any time of day from anywhere, what's going to prevent, let's say, a mass group of people wanting to redistrict Daly City all of a sudden, and what kind of weight is that going to have in terms of the round of public meetings and being those kind of changes happening kind of underhandedly?
Gotcha. The main way to counter a mass group of people that may be working underhandedly is a mass group of people working overhandedly. And that's really a big reason why we set up this site, because we've seen in some areas some underhandedness, and we want to basically empower folks like you guys who are speaking from your community voice and knowledge, and not someone from far away just making an underhanded deal. And so that's really what it's all about, and we really hope that you guys use it, use the tool, and basically make really good arguments for these folks that they just can't ignore.
Let me just add to that, make sure there's not any misconceptions. The website's not a survey or a vote. It's not a matter of who gets, which plan gets 40 people to submit it. The decision is made by the committee here to write the recommendation. So as you've seen with every issue in the county, petitions and group signatures have weight to the degree that the committee feels they have weight. Very well-spoken individuals have weight to the degree that the committee gives them weight. So don't feel like 400 people sent in the same plan, we need to get 400 people. What you need to do is weigh in on the merits. And if you get 400, great. But it's not a competition for who can get how many people to send in the same map, if that helps. The other piece is that, just to make sure, this committee will be voting, so there won't be any surprise thing, underhanded decision.
And I think you also, if I can make a comment. This body is also advisory to the Board of Supervisors, so when it gets to the Board of Supervisors, we can either accept, reject, or do something different. Our reasoning for wanting the public input is because it's going to be important for the board to make a decision based on, one, we'll look very carefully at what this committee does, and then also people can come speak at the board meeting as well, and then a decision will be made at that time. So there's lots of opportunities to make your voices heard. And, I think this board and the people that were chosen are very intelligent individuals, and I think if they start seeing sort of that kind of gerrymandering kind of playing and stuff and trying to unduly influence from one area to influence the other, I think we're smart enough to pick up some of that, and I think all of us, many of us are elected, many of us sit on planning commissions or different bodies that know our county pretty well. So I think there's not much of a chance, I think, that you're going to see that kind of behavior being able to overwhelm this committee. And that's just my sense of the people that are here.
Can I just add a quick question? Thanks to Adrian for saying that. But again, just to underscore, this is an advisory committee. So while we can recommend, we don't have the final say. You have the final say in terms of, and you saw from slide number 17 that Doug showed up there, the board consideration, that is the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, who do have the ultimate say, make this decision or adoption of whatever we advise sometime in October, November of this year. That being said, you are all the electorate. You're the folks that elected Adrian and Warren and everybody else in that San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. So it's incumbent upon you then to take advantage of the fact that you can go to these meetings in a public forum and express your opinion there as well. And just to dovetail, I mean, obviously if we see these maps spike all of a sudden, it's like South City's getting split, Daly City's getting split, you know, we can take that with a grain of salt. And one last point, which of course I forgot now. But I think it's healthy that you all continue to see that that these maps are there to continue to give ideas to this board. And I think, you know, I'm going to be compelled more by, you know, the population shifts, is how many people are in each pocket. As we said before, and I said it before, you have enough already, so there might be some slight deviations, but it's not going to be the kind of massive exodus of population from one district to another. That doesn't make any practical sense.
And I would just add and encourage, you know, to the extent that you decide to suggest changes, that I think what's going to be important to the committee is your thinking behind that. Or similarly, if you choose to remain the same, I think what we've heard tonight is some really good testimony about what's important. Why is it important for you to keep Daly City whole? The reasons, I think, are going to speak more to the committee as opposed to just the sheer numbers of people that are redrawing lines, so to speak. So that's really the important thing to be able to tell the committee what's important, what do you consider to be a community of interest, and how do you describe that. As Chris mentioned, there is that very important field as you submit your comment. It's a description field. So to the extent that you can describe, you know, what your proposal is and why that you're proposing that, I think that will be helpful for the committee. Supervisor, and then over to the mayor, and then up here.
Just one other thing, if you do hear some things, like just tonight, I heard that you've heard that the city's going to be split. I have no idea where that came from, but if you hear things like that, feel free to share it with any one of us, or write a note, or send something in, because, you know, we hadn't considered anything yet. So all these rumors going around have nothing to do with this committee. And so I think it's really important, because I think the community gets all worked up over something that doesn't exist. So if you do hear things, please feel free to either talk to me or talk to someone with me, or submit some things and say, this is what we're hearing, we're very concerned. Because I think we need to straighten those things out, because as we go to each community, if we start hearing things like that, that's not a good thing. That's destructive.
Marshall, to the mayor, and then this gentleman here.
So I'm just dovetailing to what that gentleman said, and I don't want to belabor it too much, but isn't the first draft that you're going to make, that you're going to present to this committee, going to come from the statistics and the feedback that you get from the community? So if there is that situation where an enormous amount of people say break up Daly City, your draft, your first draft, is going to reflect that. Am I not right?
Well, one thing we do, because a first draft map tends to kind of focus the discussion, is that we don't just do one first draft. So when we say draft maps, there will be multiple drafts, because we don't want to pull the conversation in one way, that way. We wanted to just remain flexible going forward. But yes, the draft plans will reflect, you know, public input and the direction from the committee members. Essentially, what you'll see in the 5th meeting is, instead of listening as much as they've been doing in these kind of listening forums, they'll listen in the 5th meeting, and then they'll give direction to us on what they really want to see. I guess that they will put a lot of weight in what the public has heard. Yes, so that we will be taking what was heard from the public and from the committee and drawing at least 2, maybe 3 draft plans that will then hopefully prompt more discussion at the same time.
Marshall, this gentleman here, comment, and then Joe.
Hi, my name is Bayer Fong. Actually, I live in San Francisco, but many of my sisters, their families live in San Mateo. They're Ray, City, and friends and family in Daly City as well. I'd love to speak to this gentleman here with the demographics census information and so forth. And I was looking at all the materials passed around here, and I was wondering if you also could provide comparison data from past censuses to show how our regions, our districts, and our cities are growing, and what are the trends, because that can also help a lot of us in a lot of our decisions. Do you have access to that, and can you post that?
One of the goals is to not overwhelm people with data. One of the things I mentioned last week is I'm showing you about 20 fields in my database, actually about 300. So I guess if there was something, I do have data going back to certainly to 2002 in terms of the surname registration and surname turnout. So what I'd suggest is if there is a certain piece of data that you're interested in, email the email address and ask for it. And if we can put it together, we'll put it together and send it to you, but maybe not on there. But we're happy to provide anything that we have.
As someone on the school board, we are inundated with a lot of data all the time. But I want to show you something concrete, something that's a map. So, don't really have to be a specialist to do this, but one of the things that we do see, or I've seen, just using public data that's out there, is these are our district lines currently. I can give you all the data that you want, all the numbers, all the census data, but that doesn't matter. This is how it looks like. Now, talking about communities of interest, here's a Latino population overlaid on top of those district lines. Now, it was Latinos and Filipinos that brought this suit together that brought up the fact that there was water dilution. Here's the Asian population overlaid on top of those district lines, on top of the Latino population. This is concrete evidence that our people must be kept together. It's not only concentrated, but it's actually grown. The fact that we have to fight for these lines so that we do not split, that we have moved down south, that we have moved east, and we have moved west. People share the same schools, as I know intimately, because I know where the kids go. High schools, shopping centers, churches. We must pay attention to these lines because these lines not only demonstrate how you vote, but what resources go to you, what monies go to you, what services go to you. So, in the spirit of being a Bay Area native, we must fight to keep these lines not only as they are now, but also to let them grow. Yes, we are within tolerance of 144,000, but if you look at District 2, it's above 2%. We must grow. We must go up in those lines. We must have a voice. We must stay together, and we must fight, 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 and tell our committee that, here, do not cut us, do not chop us. As a matter of fact, grow us. The sons and daughters of the immigrant community have grown. They have gone to Cal, they have gone to Stanford, they have gone to State, they've gone to USF. We are here, we are ready for leadership, and we are ready to grow, and we're ready to vote. And we will vote you out, or we will vote you in. But we must stay together and make these lines concrete. And let us be together.
Thank you are there any other comments from the public or the committee?
Hi, I'm curious to hear a couple things from you as the audience. One is, why do you think we would want to cut up Daly City? Is there a reason why? Is there a rumor? Somebody mentioned a rumor going around?
Yes, there's a rumor going around.
Yes.
Yes, there's a rumor going on.
You know, we're recording this, so we need to have one person speak at a time. So if
Okay.
somebody wants to
Okay,
respond.
and then the second question I had is, I understand Daly City wants to stay together, and it seems like it's hard for me to imagine splitting Daly City in this case. I'm kind of interested in, for example, that gentleman over there in South City. It looks like there could be a line going right through South City or San Bruno or someplace like that. What are the thoughts on that?
So we have a. We'll get to both of you.
Well, my name is Mark, and I'm a South City resident, so I think I mentioned in the first meeting, I have 2 assembly members, 2 state senators, and supervisors. I would like to see the lines stay the same. And I think what we talked about is perhaps keeping the lines as is, where El Camino Real is the divider coming from Westboro. Because if you go Westboro, there's a large Filipino population there that associates itself largely with the Daly City community. And as you move down to the Westboro area, Westboro Drive, up Chestnut, you get a large Latino population. And so I think for myself, obviously I like to see South City as a whole. But unfortunately, because our district is so large in the number of population, that's not going to happen. So I realize that. But I think the way it is drawn right now, keeping the areas as is with a large Filipino population in Westboro connected with the other city, I think is very beneficial. And then the large Latino population with District 1 it stay the same as it is. So that's my feeling. I think El Camino Real, Westboro, Chestnut should be the dividing line for the supervisorial districts. Because I think that's how I grew up knowing as a district as it is.
Okay. Marshall, you bring it over to Attila.
Yeah, I think that there was at least in my mind, there was a concern that Daly City would be split, just because it was my understanding that redrawing the district lines outside of the 10 years was an outcome of district elections. And when district elections was put to the Board of Supervisors, I think a majority of the Board of Supervisors didn't want to go to district elections and keep at large, keep the current system. With that said, the committee today is led by supervisors that voted no against, that did not, prior to the election, had voted not to go to district elections. So there was always the concern that that the lines might not be drawn early. So that's why the community, at least in my mind, that's why I was concerned that district lines would get would cut the city in half or split up communities on interest.
Okay. If you can pass the mic back to this gentleman here.
So again, I currently live in South San Francisco, but I did live in Daly City before. But my main interest in attending this meeting tonight was I work in public health, specifically in the area of substance abuse prevention. So I work in coalitions that operate in Daly City and Pacifica, and also a coalition that works in South San Francisco. So my personal interest is kind of knowing where these communities are and where they intersect. And I actually live on Hillside Boulevard right now, which is kind of on the South City side of San Bruno Mountain. And in my mind, because I don't know too much about the actual lines in terms of where things are divided, I've always thought that the South City, the South Hills neighborhood, because I used to live on Bellevue Avenue when I was in Daly City, I've always thought South Hills was kind of part of Daly City, but it looks to me like it's part of South San Francisco now. So that's just sort of why I'm here. I want to understand where those lines are, and I'm all in favor of keeping the cities the way they are now, if it works for people. So that's my main goal.
All right, Carol. Yes, Councilmember Clark.
First, I'd like to thank all of the committee that's working on this. I know it's a very difficult situation. I'd like to answer your question about the rumors. I get a lot. My name is Carol Clark. I'm on the Daly City Council. I'm out in the community, especially with the senior groups. I attend a lot of communities. Apparently, there's been a rumor going around that Daly City is going to be cut in half. I find it really insulting because I'm hearing being said the Filipino and Hispanic community. Daly City is a very unique city. We're one of the most diverse cities in San Mateo County. We're very proud of our population, and we all work very hard together
and we're all working hard and keeping our city whole. We want to be one city. We want to keep our boundaries like they are. We're happy the way it is, and I would encourage you to keep our boundaries and keep us a whole city.
There's certainly time for us to continue to take public input, but I know we've already lost a few people, and I wanted to just make sure that people were taking time to fill out the comment forms. So I know many of you have chosen not to speak up out loud tonight, but we are interested in your comments here. And also, as you leave, just to make sure that you pick up a copy of this, which are the other opportunities for public input that we outlined here, both email, mail. There's the web address for the online mapping tool, just for your information. So we'll continue to take comment. We have the meeting open until 8:30 if we need that. So Supervisor Tissier.
I just want to clarify something because it isn't fair to Warren. He did support district elections. I did not. I just want to make sure, but that's shocking. But I also want to say, and it's really unfortunate when I hear things like that because, the whole reason the board put this on, 4 of the 5 of us, well, you weren't on the board at the time, so 4 of the 5 of us did not support district elections. But the fact that the board as a whole brought this community body together to say, you tell us what you want. It's amazing to me that someone would think just because we didn't support it, it's a democracy. We put it to the voters vote, and then you lead by what the voters did. So, I know that's how rumors get started. Oh, they're going to, gerrymander and mess with us because we didn't do it, they didn't do what we wanted. Couldn't be further from the truth. This is a pretty great board that really wants to hear from the public. So I just wanted to clarify that because Warren wasn't on the board. He wasn't on the board, but you're right. 4 of the 5 did not support it, but unfortunately he wasn't there.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Rubin?
Just a little small point.
Well, let's wait for the microphone.
What's the connection with all cities going to get split up? And I hope people don't understand that this process doesn't affect city boundaries.
Right.
So, there seems to be some confusion about that, and we don't want a city split. This is just about where you fit in the county. Daly City will remain Daly City.
Okay. Marshall, we have one more comment from Joe. And I want to invite, we've had a few folks who are really well prepared to speak tonight, but, you should feel free to comment.
Can you say your name again, please?
Joe Otay, O-T-A-Y, D's and David, D's and Edward. I appreciate the comments from the committee members and especially our Board of Supervisors, but just to give a little pushback on Tissier, I believe November 2012 Measure B would not have been introduced and passed if it were not for the lawsuit that we joined. Changing to district elections is not new and had already been recommended to the Board of Supervisors in the past. In a June 30, 2009, the San Mateo Grand Jury sent a formal letter recommending, quote, as a result of research and interviews, the grand jury has come to believe that district elections should replace the current system of countywide elections for the Board of Supervisors. Unfortunately, in my opinion, in order to think to the power and structure and money, we resisted district elections and ignored the recommendation. Moreover, in a July 13, 2010 Board of Supervisors meeting, the election issue was formally introduced for vote to amend Section 202 of the county charter and implement district elections. But again, it was rejected 4-1, with David Pine dissenting. Even after LCCR, Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights served the board a letter regarding the violation of the California Voters' Rights Act and a possible lawsuit, it was still ignored. So, since 2009, San Mateo Grand Jury, its own grand jury, said we should move to district elections. Yet, it took another 3 years and a lawsuit for us to change, and $1 million in legal fees, taxpayer money, and another $100,000 to our consultants who are supposed to do community outreach. This could have been done a long time ago. No lawsuit, no waste of taxpayer money. Why?
Thanks for that. Any other comments? I was told by our team here that they're willing to stick around after the meeting and talk to you one-on-one if you'd rather not have your speaking during the comment period. Marshall, if you would.
And then I'm going to turn, once we're done with the public comment, I'm going to turn it back to the committee for some final comments, and I think we'll close our meeting time.
I think Supervisor Tissier has been a great supervisor. I mean, she has been a mayor, council member of our city council. She's been a strong advocate for Daly City. She's always opened the door for us to discuss things with her. She's invited me to her office. We've had discussions about issues affecting our community. And I just didn't want to leave that without having said that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for your participation tonight. I know many of you didn't speak, but I saw you listening very attentively and appreciate that. And again, if you have some comments following what you've heard tonight, please feel free to send those to us. I'm going to turn it back to the committee for some comments along the committee. And
I just want
yes.
I just wanted to talk to the gentleman. I was one of the people that was on that grand jury that wrote this letter for the 2008-2009. I have it right here. And so I agree that what Mayor Buenaventura said about Supervisor Tissier. I think she's an excellent civil servant, and she's always been above par. And she has done a wonderful job for this county. And I think that everybody on this committee really sincerely wants to do the best that they possibly can to be fair to the citizens of this county. I don't see anybody with any personal agendas, and it never should be that way. But I studied this subject 4 or 5 years ago, helped co-author this letter, and we truly want to do the best we can for you.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you have something you'd like to say.
Thanks so much for everyone for being here tonight. It's really important for us to hear from the public. We have a couple more meetings coming up. Our next meeting is Tuesday, June 25th in Palo Alto, which is where I reside, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. So if you know people that couldn't make it here tonight, please invite them out next week. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on down. Anybody?
The lawyer never passes up a chance to speak one more time. I'll echo, I think I'm obliged to echo the sentiments about our supervisors. And just to end it on a positive note, you have a chance here. It's a wonderful chance we've created here. And, you know, for me, as a lawyer, I can tell you, sometimes litigation is a means to an end. And it's done for positive progress, to find something good instead of the absence of fault. Whatever happened in the past doesn't matter. What happens right now is what all you have done and taken advantage of tonight, which is be here, have your voices heard, let us know, educate us about what you think is right or what should be done or not done. And I think this committee heard it. I think this board heard it. We're going to take it to light. I'm sure all these fine people are going to take that into consideration. What I would suggest is keep taking advantage of it. There's going to be a second round of public hearings after the initial drafts of the redistricting maps, if any, are done. That's going to take place in August and September. So there's another 2 months of public input opportunity. So irrespective of what might have been in the past, that was the past. Take hold of the present to shape your future. And that's how we're going to get ahead.
First off, I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This is this is the biggest turnout we've had so far, and I really appreciate it because I think it is important to our community. I grew up here as well, and if you have an opportunity to get people to come to some of the others, but really take heed about trying to look at the maps and give your input, have other community members give their input, because the more we hear from the public, the better off we're going to be. So I do appreciate all of you being out here tonight. It's great to see all of you. Other committee members?
I'm the new guy. You know, I worked with Supervisor Tissier for, 5 or 6 months now, and of course, worked with her in my capacity before that. And I would just echo the sentiments of the mayor and the council member that she's an outstanding public servant. And she really brings something special in terms of leadership to the Board of Supervisors, which is appreciated by all of her colleagues. Let me just say that of the 3 meetings, this is the 3rd meeting we've had. This is the biggest crowd we've ever had by probably, I don't know, double or, significant amount. And so you're all commended for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight to share your ideas and viewpoints. I would just challenge East Palo Alto. I would challenge East Palo Alto and Millbrae, our next couple of meetings, to have a crowd this size. That would be terrific. So thank you all for coming.
Good evening, my name is Rebecca, and I also thank you for everyone for coming in here. I just want to put emphasis that each of you take this handout because it has been very, very helpful. I've been using this as a guide just to be able to grasp this redistricting because it's also very new to me. And if as Supervisor Tisha had said, if you don't want to make maps or just simply just like one-liner, you could just put a line, but submit it to us. So when we're deciding, those are the tools that could be very, very useful. So if you have a one-liner comment, that's great. It'll help us. Thank you.
The last announcement that I want to make, in addition to what you see up here, which are the different methods for public input, I want to mention also that, as you've seen, we have a court reporter who's transcribing all of the comments, and that will be available to you. We've been videotaping this meeting as well, so that is going to be available on the website. And the website is, I don't know if any of you have been to the county website to look at this process, but it's under construction to improve its user-friendliness. So we wanted to make sure that you knew that as of next week, you'll see a revamped website about this process, which has additional links to the resources that will document what the committee has been doing, including videos of the meetings and the transcripts. So we really want to make this a transparent process. And any other comments from the committee? Otherwise, I will just say from the team that put on the meetings tonight, thank you very much. Please encourage others to come to our final 2 meetings in East Palo Alto and on July 11th in Millbrae. And that July 11th meeting, it's anticipated that not only will we hear from the Millbrae residents and others, but we'll also have some comments back from the committee and initiation of that deliberation that we talked about. So you're all invited to come, and please stay engaged with this process.
I also think we need a motion to adjourn.
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.